Commentary on the Fated Sun trilogy by Cherryh. Okay. I'll give some official information shortly, but I'll just give a few comments first. Now, I read this decade or so ago. Borrowed the book, actually. I have a copy of the book now, the trilogy, which I've bought myself, but I borrowed it from the library in Tuggeranong in Canberra, the Southern District. And it's a trilogy, and I read the first volume and the second volume, and I got a bit of the way into the third volume, Cataf, but just didn't have the energy to quite finish it off. Now, I don't remember much of it now. Of course, it's been a while. I just reread an article on it then to get a refresher, and some things came through. Some things did come through. I remember though that it was about a race which apparently were mercenaries, the Marine, who served the Regal, and they served them in a war against humanity. And I remember at the end of the first book when they're being medicated, the main warrior fella, Nian, is being medicated with his sister Melaine. It reminds me, it struck me that it feels like Empire Strikes Back when Luke Skywalker is being medicated. It's sort of, and I just sort of, oh, she sort of, it's got the same sort of feel for that bit. It's I remember thinking about the work that it was a bit sort of in a strange way non-action, even though there's actually plenty of action in it, but the first book of the trilogy builds to a bit of a climax, which books often do, especially Pliocene Exiles by Julie May. The second book ends in the flood of the Mediterranean. It's a bit of a climax. But the first volume ends in a climax as well, and it builds up to it well. Movies are often like that. They build to a bit of a climax, and this one sort of, yeah, it's pretty good by the end of the first volume. I do now remember the second volume, Sten Duncan, the human, who's has to accompany Nian and Melaine back to the Marine homeworld, which they're a warrior mercenary race, mercenaries for hire. And I remember his training now, which was going on to become one of the Marine. And I'm not sure if you would call the Fated Sun trilogy heavy reading, but it's science fiction and it's very good reading. It's very good reading. She's not necessarily the best. I think it's Cherryh. I'm not sure if it's a he or a she, actually, when it comes right down to it. But Cherryh is not necessarily the greatest science fiction writer of all time, but definitely competent, like some of the big names. Cherryh is sort of a big enough name and definitely competent sort of stuff. But anyway. I'll read this out, the Fated Sun Trilogy, an article on it, which is public domain. The Fated Sun Trilogy is a series of science fiction novels set in the Alliance Union universe of American writer C.J. Cherryh. The series comprises the three novels The Fated Sun, Kezrith, The Fated Sun, Shonji, and The Fated Sun, Kutath, published by Door Books. They were republished as an omnibus edition in the UK in 1997 and in the US in 2000. The series consists of some of the earliest of Cherryh's novels, featuring world-building and extraterrestrial races. Both the Marie and the Regal fulfill John W. Campbell's dictum of "Show me a creature that thinks as well as a man, or better, but not like a man." The Fated Sun Kezrith was nominated for the Nebula Award in 1978 and the Hugo Award in 1979, and was shortlisted for the Locus Awards in 1979. And was, in addition, the other two books in the trilogy were independently longlisted for the Locus Award. Okay, I'll give you the plot summary. The Fated Sun trilogy can be considered a Bildungsroman, since one of the major themes is the coming of age of Nian, the Marie protagonist. At the same time, it is a story of acculturation, as the human protagonist, Sten Duncan, lives among the Marie to the point of becoming one of them. The Fated Sun trilogy is the principal account of the Marie Wars era of Cherryh's Alliance Union universe. I haven't read any of the others. I've read Merovingian Nights, but I'm not sure if it's set in the same universe. A bit of the first novel, Angel of Sword of the Angel or something like that. One of those novels. Could be in that universe, I don't know. At the beginning of the first volume, the Regal have just concluded a 40-year war with humanity. As part of the peace, they are ceding the desert world of Cherryh to humanity. However, they have neglected to inform its inhabitants of the Marie, who have served them as mercenaries for over 2,000 years. The Marie have been nearly exterminated in these wars, and the young Nian is one of the few remaining warriors. When the Regals seek to double-cross his people, he and his sister Mullane, the last of the priestly Sen caste, form an uneasy alliance with human Sten Duncan to rescue a holy relic that may hold the key to the Marie's survival. The second volume opens with Nian and Mullane, captives of a human occupation force kept alive by human medicine. They would refuse if they were not sedated. That's how the first novel ends. But the human command has a plan that may thwart the Regals' attempted genocide of the Marie. They produce a navigation tape from the data in the holy relic that legend holds leads the way to the Marie homeworld, and setting the animal lane aboard the ship, Duncan comes to them to keep the ship running. I remember thinking about the data tape when I was reading it. That's sort of like videotape or something. It's like that's the best of C.J. Cherryh's knowledge in 1978 of what technology has. It's not exactly a USB drive, is it now, or a CD-ROM, it's tape. Soon after they have left Cherryh, Mullane lays down a mandate that nothing that is not Marie can make a return to the ancient Marie homeworld. As a result, Duncan must become Marie or die. With Nian as his teacher, Duncan learns the stern rules of the Marie warrior caste, the Kel. Retracing the voyages of the Marie takes years, jump after jump, giving Duncan time to become Marie. With each jump, they find evidence of previous Marie civilizations, each one destroyed, further and further back in time. Eventually, they realize that this is not the first time that the Marie have been almost exterminated. In fact, the Marie history has been made up of the Marie fighting as mercenaries for other races, then being turned upon for their usefulness has ended, once the usefulness has ended, as the races employing the Marie did not wish the possibility that the Marie might go and work for their enemies and be used against their former employees. When the ship lands on Katath, the ancient homeworld of the Marie, the three find other Marie, the tribes who remained. They also discover that humans and Regal have followed the ship, and the Regal have not forgotten their determination to commit genocide. After an unprovoked attack, Duncan goes back to the human ship and slays the Regal elder. I had never read that far into it. When the third volume begins, Regal are in a state of disarray as a result of the assassination. Duncan returns to Marie and joins them in seeking assistance from the LE, the other surviving race of the ancient Katath. After a new order has risen among the Regal, they renew their attack on the Marie. This time humanity acts to halt the genocide, breaking the cycle and forming a new partnership with the Marie. I do remember one other thing, that when Nian was very well trained as a Marie warrior, he'd gone through a lot of training and on the original world he's on, and they had medals or something like that, which they awarded or something, and it was extremely well trained, but there wasn't any great. I remember some of the commentary of the book was he didn't have any great adversaries to fight terribly much. But when he comes to Katath, there is a fight that he goes through with someone, and he slays him quite easily. Another Marie fighter, and found it terribly easy. And so it was just an interesting point of the book. But that's just the Faded Sun trilogy. I'd probably say I would recommend it. It's good, solid science fiction, and as a rating, probably about an 8, 7, 7.5, 8 out of 10.